I'm Lena Morgan. 12 years ago, my boyfriend walked out the moment he found out I was pregnant, with twins. No job, no money, no family. I gave birth at just 28 weeks, surrounded by ventilator alarms and the fear that my daughters might not make it through the night. And that was only the beginning. Before I share the full story, from a tear-stained basement to a national stage, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever pushed through hardship for your family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. The pregnancy test stared back at me with two pink lines that might as well have been prison bars. My hands shook as I set it on the bathroom counter of my cramped Detroit apartment, next to three others just like it. All positive. I'd bought 4 different brands, hoping one would tell me what I wanted to hear. But hope was a luxury I'd never been able to afford, and apparently, neither was denial. It was 2:47 a.m. when I took the photo of the ultrasound printout from the ER visit earlier that day. I'd gone in thinking I had food poisoning. The nurse's face when she told me that careful, practiced neutrality that medical professionals perfect should have prepared me. Nothing prepares you for seeing 2 tiny shapes on a grainy screen, 2 heartbeats thundering through the speakers like a storm warning. Twins. My thumb hovered over Elliot's contact. 3 months we'd been together. 3 months of him flying in from Seattle, of expensive dinners I couldn't reciprocate, of him assuring me that our different worlds didn't matter. Send it, I told myself. He said he loved you last week. The message went through at 3:03 a.m. I watched the delivered notification like it might transform into something else. Maybe just kidding or false alarm. My phone screen dimmed, brightened, dimmed again. 20 minutes passed. Then his typing indicator appeared. My heart hammered against my ribs. 2 beats, like an echo of the ultrasound. The dots disappeared, reappeared, disappeared again. When his response finally came, it was brief. We need to talk. I'll fly in tomorrow. I didn't sleep. By morning, I'd deep cleaned my entire apartment twice, as if Elliot might judge me for water stains in the sink when I was carrying his children. Our children, I corrected myself. The word felt foreign on my tongue. He arrived at noon, still in his tailored suit from whatever boardroom he'd abandoned. Elliot Carrington had never looked more out of place than he did standing in my doorway, his Armani shoes touching the cracked linoleum I'd tried to hide with a discount store rug. Lena. Just my name, but the way he said it, like a verdict, told me everything. I stepped aside to let him in. He didn't sit, just stood there in my living room that suddenly seemed even smaller with him in it. His eyes found the ultrasound photo I'd left on the coffee table. He picked it up with the same expression someone might wear handling evidence at a crime scene. How far along? 8 weeks. My voice came out steadier than I felt. They're twins. His jaw tightened. I watched him transform before my eyes. From the man who'd whispered promises against my neck to the corporate shark his father had raised. This is unfortunate. Unfortunate? The word tasted like ash. That's what you call our children? Unfortunate? Let's be practical, Lena. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his checkbook. The casual cruelty of that gesture, like he carried it for emergencies, like I was an emergency, made me step back. You're 26. You have no family. You live in... He gestured vaguely at my apartment. This. What kind of life is that for a child? For 2. The kind where they're wanted. My hands moved instinctively to my still flat stomach. He wrote the check with quick, efficient strokes. $20,000 should cover the procedure and something extra for your troubles. He set it on the coffee table next to the ultrasound. You're smart, Lena. Make the smart choice. You don't belong in my world, and dragging children into this, and get out. He straightened his tie, a gesture so casual it broke something inside me. I'm trying to help you see reason. My family, the Carrington name, we have expectations, standards. You're a good person, Lena, but you're not. You were never going to be permanent. Each word was a scalpel, precise and cutting. I thought of all the times he'd traced the scar on my shoulder from a foster home accident, how he'd said my strength was what attracted him. Apparently, strength was only attractive in small, manageable doses. I said, get out. He left the check on the table. At the door, he paused. Think about it. You know I'm right. Someone like you, raising them alone, it's not fair to anyone. The door clicked shut with a finality that echoed through my bones. I stood there for a long time, staring at the check. $20,000. Was that the price of 2 lives? Or just the price of making me disappear? I picked up the ultrasound photo, traced the 2 shapes with my finger. I promise, I whispered to them. You'll never wonder if you were wanted. Then I tore the check into pieces so small they looked like snow falling on my coffee table. Outside, December in Detroit pressed against my windows, and I realized I'd never felt more alone or more determined in my entire life. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Elliot's assistant. He asked me to remind you that the offer expires in 48 hours. I deleted it and blocked the number. Then I sat on my couch, pulled my laptop onto my lap, and started researching. Prenatal vitamins, twins development, state assistance programs. My browser history that night read like a map of terror and determination. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke to my laptop battery dying and dawn creeping through my windows. My neck ached from sleeping upright and my mouth tasted like fear. But I was still pregnant, still alone, still here, and that had to count for something. The garage smelled like motor oil and broken dreams. I'd been working there for 3 weeks since Morrison Technologies, my former employer, had let me go. Budget cuts, they'd said, but I'd seen the way my supervisor's eyes dropped to my growing belly. Twins show early, and at 14 weeks, hiding was no longer an option. Morgan! Big Mike hollered from under a Honda. Customer up front. I wiped my hands on my coveralls, the ones I'd had to buy 2 sizes up already. The December wind cut through the garage's broken window as I made my way to the front desk. My back screamed with every step. Turns out carrying twins while bending over engines all day wasn't what the pregnancy books recommended. The customer was Mrs. Ruth Delgado, a woman I'd seen around the neighborhood. Silver hair pulled back severely, wearing a wool coat that had seen better decades. Her eyes, sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, studied me with an intensity that made me straighten despite my aching spine. "You're the girl from 4B, she said. Not a question. Yes, ma'am. The one who used to work at Morrison, the engineer? I nodded, wondering where this was going. People in our building minded their own business. It was an unspoken rule of survival. My car makes a sound, she said, like crying. I almost laughed at the description but caught myself. Could be the belts? When did it start? Tuesday, the same day I heard actual crying from 4B. My face burned. I'd broken down that night finally, completely. The weight of everything. Elliot's abandonment, losing my job, the 2 lives growing inside me depending on someone who could barely keep herself together, had crashed over me like a wave. I'm sorry if I disturbed. I buried my daughter 5 years ago. Ruth's words cut through my apology like a blade. She was 28, pregnant, the father left, and she thought she couldn't do it alone. The garage suddenly felt airless. I gripped the counter, unsure why this stranger was telling me this. I heard you crying, Ruth continued, and I heard you stop. That's the difference, child. My Isabel didn't stop. She let the despair win. Her eyes moved deliberately to my belly. How far along? 14 weeks. My voice came out rough. Twins. Something shifted in her expression. When did you eat last? Real food, not garage vending machine garbage. I couldn't remember. Yesterday? The day before? Morning sickness had evolved into all-day nausea, and the smell of motor oil didn't help. That's what I thought. She pulled out her keys. Fix my car, then come to 2A. I made pozole. It wasn't a request. As she turned to leave, she paused. And bring your laptop, the one you carry everywhere like a security blanket. I know who you are, Lena Morgan. I Googled you after Morrison announced that new air filtration system. Funny how it looked exactly like the sketches I saw you working on in the laundry room last spring. My blood ran cold. I'd suspected, hell, I'd known, but hearing someone else confirm it made it real. Elliot had stolen more than just my heart and my faith in people. He'd taken my work, my ideas, and slapped his name on them. I can't prove anything, I said quietly. No, Ruth agreed, but you can create something better, after pozole. That night, sitting at Ruth's kitchen table with a bowl of soup that tasted like home, not that I knew what home tasted like, but I imagined it would taste like this, I showed her my sketches for the baby monitoring system. My hands shook as I explained the concept, how it could track twins separately, monitor breathing patterns, alert for temperature changes. I know it's just an idea, I said, suddenly embarrassed by my ambition. I don't have funding or… Isabel was a programmer, Ruth interrupted. Brilliant. She left behind code, half-finished projects. I don't understand any of it, but maybe… She stood, disappeared into another room, and returned with a laptop. Maybe her work could live on somehow. I opened the laptop carefully, like it might break. The desktop was organized chaos. Folders labeled with dates and cryptic project names. One caught my eye. Baby Watch V3 incomplete. She was building something similar, Ruth said softly. For her baby, the one that never… I clicked through the code, recognizing the elegant logic, the careful architecture. Isabel had been gifted. More than that, she'd been thinking like a mother. Every function designed around real needs, not marketable features. I swallowed hard. I could build on this, combine it with my hardware designs, but I'd need to credit her, Yes, Ruth's voice was fierce. Yes, you credit her, Isabel Delgado. Let her name mean something. That's how it started. Every night after the garage, I'd climb the stairs to Ruth's apartment. She'd feed me, really feed me, not the crackers and peanut butter I'd been surviving on, while I worked. Some nights I coded until my eyes burned. Other nights, the twins' movement distracted me, and I'd just sit there, hand on my belly, wondering how something so beautiful could come from something so broken. Ruth never asked about the father. She didn't need to. She'd seen this story before, lived its worst possible ending. Instead, she told me about Isabel, how she'd loved puzzles as a child, how she'd won a full scholarship to Michigan State, how she'd called her mother crying the night she found out she was pregnant. I told her it would be okay, Ruth said one evening, watching me debug a particularly stubborn function. I said all the right things, but I didn't. I didn't move heaven and earth. I didn't show up at her door with Pozzoli and demand she eat. I gave her space when what she needed was invasion. I looked up from the screen. Ruth was crying, silent tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. That's why, she continued. When I heard you crying, but then heard you get up the next morning, heard you leave for work, I knew. You're going to make it because you're too stubborn to quit. But nobody should have to be that stubborn alone. The twins kicked then, hard enough that I gasped. Ruth's eyes widened as I grabbed her hand, placed it on my belly. The movement came again. 2 distinct points of pressure, like they were high-fiving through my skin. Isabel felt her baby move once, Ruth whispered. Just once. She called me at midnight, laughing and crying at the same time. 3 days later, they're strong, I said, not knowing if I meant the twins or their kicks or maybe all of us trying to survive in bodies that felt like battlegrounds. Yes, Ruth agreed. They are. That night, I finally opened the journal I'd bought weeks ago. On the first page, I wrote, Dear Aria and Nova. I'd decided on names, finally, staring at code until my eyes crossed. Your Aunt Isabel, that's what we'll call her, never got to meet her baby. But her code, her dreams, are helping me build something to keep you safe. You're already part of a legacy of women who loved their children before they were born. Today, you kicked hard enough to make me cry. Good tears, I promise. The kind that mean you're real and I'm not dreaming this whole impossible thing. Your dad, I'll tell you about him when you're older, said I didn't belong in his world. He was right. I'm building us a better one. The hospital room smelled like fear and industrial disinfectant. 28 weeks. Too early. Way too early. But my body had decided the twins were done cooking, and the contractions that started during my shift at the garage had progressed faster than the ambulance could drive. We need to slow this down, Dr. Martinez said, her voice calm, but her movements urgent. The steroids need more time to work on their lungs. I nodded, unable to speak through the contraction that felt like my body was being torn in half. Ruth's hand in mine was the only thing keeping me anchored to the world. I called your emergency contact, a nurse said, checking something on her tablet. I don't have… Another contraction stole my words. I'd listed Ruth just last week after she'd insisted. The garage, Ruth explained quickly. She means Big Mike from the garage. The idea of my gruff boss getting that call almost made me laugh, if laughing wouldn't have hurt so much. He'd been surprisingly kind about my pregnancy, adjusting my duties as I grew bigger, making sure I took breaks. Kids need their mama strong, he'd said once, and I'd had to hide in the bathroom to cry. Lena, look at me. A new voice. Dr. Isla Bennett, the NICU attending, appeared at my bedside. Young for her position, with kind eyes that held the weight of too many tiny lives. We're going to do everything we can, but I need you to understand. 28 weeks means a long road, but it's a road we can travel. Please, I whispered, please don't let them come too soon. But bodies don't listen to please. And 6 hours later, Arya entered the world screaming. All 3 pounds, 2 ounces of her. Nova followed 2 minutes later, silent in a way that made the room hold its breath until her thin cry finally came. I saw them for seconds, tiny, impossibly tiny, more bird than baby, before they were whisked away to the NICU. The silence they left behind was deafening. When can I— Soon, Dr. Bennett promised. We need to get them settled, get you stable, but soon. Soon turned out to be 3 hours later. Ruth wheeled me down hallways that felt endless, past rooms full of regular babies who'd had the courtesy to finish cooking. The NICU doors required buzzers and hand sanitizer and a level of sterility that made me feel dirty just existing. But then I saw them, 2 isolates side by side, because even the NICU nurses knew twins needed each other. Wires and tubes made them look like tiny astronauts, explorers in a world they weren't ready for. Arya on the left, Nova on the right. I memorized them instantly. Arya's slightly rounder face, Nova's longer fingers. You can touch them, the nurse said gently. Through the ports, talk to them. They know your voice. My hand shook as I reached through the round opening in Arya's isolette. Her entire foot was smaller than my thumb. When I stroked her leg with one finger, her toes curled. A reflex, but it felt like acknowledgement. Hey, troublemaker, I whispered. Couldn't wait to see the world, huh? In the next isolette, Nova's monitors beeped a protest. I'm coming, baby girl. I'm right here. I moved to her, repeated the gentle touch. You're both here. We're all here. Talking helps, Dr. Bennett said from behind me. She'd changed from scrubs to regular clothes. End of shift, probably, but still here. They've heard your voice for months. It's the one familiar thing in all this chaos. Do you have kids? The question slipped out before I could stop it. One, she's 12 now. Dr. Bennett pulled up a chair beside me. Born at 30 weeks. I was a resident, working 100-hour weeks, thought I was invincible. My body disagreed. Is she okay? She's perfect. Plays violin, hates math, wants to be a marine biologist. She smiled. I quit medicine for 2 years. Couldn't stand being away from her when she needed me most. Came back to NICU because I realized this, helping mothers like us, this was where I belonged. I can't quit, I said. I've got nothing to quit from. Lost my real job. The garage barely pays for my apartment. You'd be surprised what you can do when you have to. She stood, checked both monitors with practiced eyes. They're stable, good oxygen levels. Nova's a little feistier. See how her heart rate spikes when you talk? She's already trying to communicate. Over the next weeks, the NICU became my world. I learned the language of Desats and Brady's, celebrated every gram gained like a victory. Ruth brought my laptop, and I coded between kangaroo care sessions, skin-to-skin contact that was supposed to help them grow. Arya always settled immediately against my chest. Nova took longer, fussing until she found the perfect spot. Picky one, Jackie, my favorite nurse, would say. She knows what she wants. I'd submitted the patent application for the twin monitoring system the day before I went into labor. The confirmation email came while I was holding Nova, tubes and wires making a web between us. Provisional patent application received. Good news? Ruth asked from her chair in the corner. She came every day, bringing food that actually tasted like something, keeping me company during the endless hours. Maybe, I don't know, it feels so small compared to— I gestured at the isolettes, at my daughters fighting for every breath. Nothing about this is small, Ruth said firmly. You're building their future while sitting in their present. That's not small, that's superhuman. Week 4 in the NICU, I got the email that changed everything. Subject line: patent application, prior art claim. My hands trembled as I read. Carrington Power had filed a challenge, claiming my monitoring system infringed on their air filtration patents, the ones based on my stolen designs. The letter was signed by Elliot himself as CEO. He knew. He knew I'd had the twins, knew where we were, what we were going through, and he'd chosen this moment to strike. Mama's blood pressure is not happy, Jackie observed, watching my monitors spike. I was still hooked up during kangaroo care, a precaution after my blood pressure issues during delivery. What's wrong? Nothing, I lied, closing the email. Just work stuff. But Ruth saw through me. That night, after I'd kissed the girls goodnight through the isolette ports, she cornered me in the family lounge. What did he do? I showed her the email. Her face went through several expressions before settling on cold fury. He's trying to bury you in legal fees, she said, assuming you'll give up, too overwhelmed to fight. He's not wrong. I can't afford a lawyer. I can barely afford gas to get here every day. Then don't fight. Ruth's smile was sharp. Create something he can't touch. Make your system so different, so innovative, that his stolen filtration designs look like cave paintings in comparison. That's what I did. Every moment not spent with the girls, I coded. I incorporated Isabel's emotional recognition algorithms. I added features no one else had thought of. Twin synchronization alerts, pattern recognition for individual babies, connection to hospital systems for premature infant care. You should see this, Dr. Bennett said one morning, pulling up something on her tablet. Someone posted about your system on the Preemie Parent Forum. Look at these comments. Dozens of parents, all desperate for exactly what I was building. Parents of multiples, of preemies, of babies with special needs. They didn't care about Carrington Power or patent disputes. They cared about keeping their babies safe. How did they find out about it? Big Mike, Ruth admitted. He's been telling every customer about his mechanic with the genius daughters and the revolutionary baby monitor. Man's better than a marketing department. I cried then, right there in the NICU, because kindness from unexpected places was still so foreign to me. Dr. Bennett pretended not to notice, busying herself with chart reviews while I pulled myself together. I want to invest, she said quietly. Not much. Doctor's salary with medical school loans isn't what people think, but something. This matters, Lena. What you're building matters. I can't take your money, and it's not charity, it's business. I've been in these trenches. I know what parents need. Let me help you help them. Week 6 brought a milestone. Area hit 4 pounds. Nova was close behind at 3 pounds, 14 ounces. They were moved to the step-down unit, still monitored but stable enough for clothes for hope. I dressed them for the first time in matching onesies Ruth had bought, Thing 1 and Thing 2, because even in crisis, we found moments of light. They looked impossibly small and impossibly perfect. They'll go home soon, Dr. Bennett warned. Have you thought about how you'll manage? Twins are intense. Preemie twins. I had thought about it. Every night, lying on Ruth's couch, she'd insisted I stay, my apartment being a 4th-floor walk-up. I'd planned and worried and planned some more. But thinking and doing were different beasts. I'll figure it out, I said, the words feeling both like a lie and the only truth I had. The day before discharge, I sat between their isolettes, a daughter on each side, and pulled out my journal. Dear Arya and Nova, tomorrow we go home. I'm terrified. You're still so small, still setting off alarms that make my heart stop. But you're also fierce. You fought for every breath, every ounce, every day of these 7 weeks. Your dad, I thought of him today when I signed discharge papers listing me as sole guardian, tried to make us disappear this week. But you can't erase something that burns this bright. I promise you both. We may not have much, but we have each other. And that's already more than I ever had. Ruth's basement wasn't really a basement, more like a garden-level apartment with its own entrance. It had been Isabel's space, she told me, voice careful as she showed me around. The walls still held push-pin holes from posters, and there was a desk in the corner with a chair that had been adjusted for a pregnant belly. I couldn't. Ruth's voice caught. I couldn't change anything. But maybe it's time. Maybe it's what she would want. The twins were 3 months old, finally home, but still fragile. Arya had reflux that meant she projectile vomited at least once a day. Nova had sleep apnea that required a monitor, its alarm piercing the night at random intervals. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight since they'd come home. But in Ruth's basement, with her help during the day and the desk where Isabel had dreamed her own dreams, I built mine. Twin Core started as desperation dressed up as innovation. The hospital monitors cost thousands to rent. The apps available were designed for healthy, full-term babies who did predictable things like sleep for more than 20 minutes at a time. I needed something that understood chaos, that could track 2 different babies with very different needs. Mama coding again, I'd whisper to whichever twin was awake at 3 a.m. Building something just for you. The breakthrough came from Big Mike, of all people. He'd stopped by with groceries. The garage guys had started a meal train without telling me, and watched as I tried to juggle both girls while checking Nova's oxygen levels. You need more hands, he observed. I need 8 hands, I corrected, finally getting Nova settled while Arya began her pre-meltdown whimper. Nah, he said, picking up Arya with surprising gentleness. You need better tools. Like when I'm under a car, I don't grow extra arms, I get the right wrench. That night, after the girls were finally down, I redesigned the entire interface. Instead of complex medical readings, I created simple visual alerts. Green for good, yellow for attention needed, red for immediate action. Patterns that learned each baby's normal so it could flag abnormal without false alarms. It's brilliant, said Maria, a mom from my online preemie group who'd agreed to beta test. It's like having a NICU nurse in my phone. Word spread through the parent networks faster than any marketing campaign could have achieved. Within 2 weeks, I had 50 beta testers. Within a month, a tech blogger, also a preemie mom, wrote a review that called Twin Core the monitoring system designed by someone who actually lives this life. That's when Bloom Capital called. We'd like to discuss investment opportunities, the voice on the phone said. Professional, polished, probably calling from an office that cost more monthly than I'd made all year. I'm not interested in changing my vision, I said immediately, Nova fussing in my arms while I tried to sound professional. This is built for parents like me. That's not negotiable. We know, the woman, Shanice, she'd introduced herself as, laughed. That's why we're calling. Bloom specifically invests in women-led companies solving real problems. Real problems usually come from real experience. The meeting was scheduled for the next week. Ruth watched the girls while I put on my only suit, pre-pregnancy, held closed with a strategically placed safety pin. I'd printed my business plan at the library, binding it in a folder from the dollar store. The Bloom Capital office was exactly what I'd expected. Sleek, modern, intimidating. What I hadn't expected was the wall of photos, not of deals or handshakes, but of the children whose lives had been impacted by their investments. Ms. Morgan, Shanice stood to greet me. She was younger than her voice suggested, with natural hair in a perfect twist and eyes that missed nothing. I've been using your app for a week. You have kids? Nephew, born at 26 weeks. My sister's been using Twin Core since your beta launch. She says it's the only reason she sleeps at all. The presentation I'd practiced went out the window. Instead, we talked parent to caregiver, about the reality of preemie life, about the gaps in current technology, about why Twin Core mattered beyond market share and profit margins. 500,000, Shanice said finally. Standard terms, but there's a condition. Here it comes, I thought. The catch. The request to pivot, to broaden, to dilute what made Twin Core special. We want you to stay focused on the NICU community. No rushing to expand to general market. Build this right for the people who need it most. The rest will follow. I signed the papers with tears in my eyes, thinking of the nights I'd coded while pumping milk for babies too small to nurse, of the features born from 4 a.m. desperation, of Isabel's code living on in something that might save other mothers from her fate. There's something else, Shanice said as I prepared to leave. The patent dispute with Carrington Power. We have lawyers who specialize in IP theft, pro bono for our portfolio companies. I can't prove he stole my designs, I said, the old wound still fresh. You don't have to. You just have to make it expensive enough that he backs off. Bullies usually do when someone fights back. On the train home, I stared at the check in my hands. $500,000. More money than I'd ever seen, enough to quit the garage to hire help to build something real. But first, I had someone to find. Silas Kim was a legend in UX circles. The designer who'd walked away from Google Health over ethical concerns about data privacy. I tracked him down through LinkedIn, crafting a message that balanced professional with desperate. I have twins, I wrote, preemies. I'm building something that matters, and I need someone who understands why privacy isn't optional when it comes to our baby's data. He responded within an hour. Coffee tomorrow? I'll come to you. I remember the twin logistics nightmare. Silas showed up at Ruth's with a box of pastries and a laptop covered in stickers from privacy conferences. Korean American, early 30s, with the kind of quiet intensity that suggested deep thoughts beneath still waters. Show me what you've built, he said simply. For 2 hours, I walked him through Twin Core while the girls napped in their bassinets nearby. He asked questions that showed he'd done his homework, understood not just the technical aspects but the emotional weight of what we were creating. The UI is good, he said finally, but we can make it great. Parents in crisis shouldn't have to think. Every tap should be intuitive, every alert clear without causing panic. I held my breath, if you'll have me. I can't work for another company that treats user data like currency. But this, helping parents protect their babies while protecting their privacy, this I can do. I can't pay market rate, and I'm not asking for market rate. I'm asking for meaning, equity, and enough to live on. The rest we figure out as we go. That's how I ended up with a co-founder who understood that sometimes the best technology is invisible, who spent his first week interviewing every parent in our beta program, who designed an onboarding process so simple a sleep-deprived parent could complete it one-handed while holding a baby. We need to talk about the lawsuit, he said one evening, after we'd submitted our first official version to the app stores. Carrington's lawyers are pushing hard. Let them push. I was tired of being afraid, of letting Elliot control any part of our lives. Bloom's lawyers say we have a case for harassment, plus public opinion matters. If he wants to be the CEO who sued a preemie mom over baby monitors, let him. There's something else. Silas pulled up an article on his phone. Carrington Power's stock is down. Shareholders are asking questions about R&D practices. Seems someone leaked that their star patents might have questionable origins. Who would... I stopped. Ruth. It had to be Ruth. She'd been a professor, had connections, knew how to make noise in the right circles. Does it matter? Silas asked. He's vulnerable. We could press our advantage. I looked at my daughters, finally big enough to play on a blanket on the floor. Nova had learned to grab Arya's hand, holding tight like she'd never let go. They didn't know their father was trying to destroy what their mother was building. They just knew warmth and milk and voices that loved them. Dear Arya and Nova, today I became a CEO. It feels surreal to write that. 6 months ago, I was crying in a garage bathroom. Sure, I'd ruined your lives by bringing you into my mess, but maybe that's what a strength is. Not having it all figured out, but figuring it out as you go. Building the plane while flying it, as your Uncle Silas says. He's not really your uncle, but family is more than blood, as you'll learn. You're both smiling now. Real smiles, not gas. Every morning, you look at each other first, then at me, like you're checking that your whole world is present and accounted for. You are my whole world, too. 12 years. That's how long it took to get from crying in a Detroit garage to standing on the main stage at the National Health Innovation Summit in Washington, D.C. 12 years of 3 a.m. feedings becoming 3 a.m. strategy sessions, of growing Twin Core from desperate necessity to a platform serving millions of families. Mom, you're doing the thing, Arya whispered from the wings, her 14-year-old eye roll audible even from here. What thing? I whispered back, adjusting the microphone clipped to my blazer. Real designer now, not held together with safety pins. The staring into space thing, like you're seeing ghosts. She wasn't wrong. Standing here, about to deliver the keynote address, I could see every version of myself that had led to this moment. The terrified 26-year-old. The exhausted mother of preemies. the desperate entrepreneur, the woman who'd built an empire on the foundation of abandonment. Places, please, the stage manager called. I squeezed Arya's hand, then Nova's. My daughters, taller than me now, brilliant in their own unique ways. Arya with her robotics trophies, and Nova with her poetry published in national journals. They'd insisted on being here, on watching their mother claim this space. And now, the announcer's voice boomed, please welcome the CEO of Twin Core Health Tech Inc., Ms. Lena Morgan. The applause washed over me as I walked to center stage. In the front row, I saw Ruth, silver hair now white but eyes still sharp. Silas sat beside her, grinning. Big Mike had even closed the garage for the day to be here, wearing a suit that looked as uncomfortable as he did proud. And in the back, trying to blend into shadows despite his height, Elliot Carrington. I'd known he would come. His company's fall had been swift and public. Investigations into patent theft, shareholder lawsuits, his resignation in disgrace. The tech world loved a dramatic rise, but loved a dramatic fall even more. Good afternoon, I began, my voice steady. 12 years ago, I stood in a hospital NICU, watching my premature twins fight for every breath. I was 26, alone, and had just been fired for being pregnant. I had nothing but a laptop and an idea born from desperation. I told our story. Not the polished version I'd given to investors, but the real one. The garage job, Ruth's Pozzoli, Isabel's code living on. The nights I'd chosen between formula and rent. The beta testers who'd become family. The community that had raised us all. TwinCore was never about disrupting markets or exit strategies, I said. It was about survival. Mine, my daughters, and every parent who's ever stood terrified in a NICU, wondering if love would be enough. I talked about our expansion, how we'd moved beyond monitoring to support, creating networks of care that connected parents to resources, to each other, to hope. How we'd kept our promise to prioritize privacy, to never monetize fear, to remember that behind every data point was a family in crisis. But the most important thing I've learned, I said, finding Arya and Nova in the wings, is that we are not coincidences. My daughters were not accidents or mistakes or unfortunate timing. They were the beginning of everything that mattered. I saw Nova wipe her eyes, Arya putting an arm around her sister. They'd grown up knowing their story, never hidden, never ashamed. To the young mothers out there, the ones being told they don't belong, that their children are burdens or bad timing, you are not coincidence. You are the beginning of someone's everything. The applause was thunderous, but I only had eyes for my girls as I left the stage. They crashed into me, a tangle of teenage limbs and tears. Did we really almost die? Nova asked quietly. She knew the story, but sometimes she needed to hear it again. You fought, I told her. From the very first moment, you both fought, and you won. Later, at the reception, I wasn't surprised when Elliot approached. He looked older, grayer, diminished in a way that had nothing to do with his fall from power. Lena. Elliot. He glanced at the girls, who flanked me like bodyguards. Arya's glare could have cut glass. Nova studied him with the quiet intensity she brought to her poetry. He stopped, started again. They're remarkable. Yes, I agreed. They are. I was wrong. The word seemed to physically pain him. About everything. I've followed your success. What you've built, who they've become. Arya stepped forward, and for a moment I thought she might hit him. Instead, she spoke with a clarity that took my breath away. You may be the reason we were born, she said. But our mother is the reason we got to live. There's a difference, Nova added quietly. We know who we are. We're not coincidences or mistakes. We're Arya and Nova Morgan. That's enough. Elliot nodded, understanding the dismissal. As he walked away, shoulders bent with the weight of what he'd thrown away, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no regret. He was just a man who'd made a choice, and we were the women who'd made better ones. Mom? Nova touched my arm. You okay? I pulled both my daughters close, breathing in the miracle of them. Taller than me now, but still mine. Still the two hearts that had beaten their rhythm of survival into existence. More than okay, I told them. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. Dear Arya and Nova, today you stood on your own feet and spoke your own truth. Every word you said was yours, not coached or scripted. You've become the women I dreamed you'd be while you were still too small for clothes. Tomorrow, you'll go back to being teenagers who argue about bathroom time and leave science projects on the kitchen table. But today, you were warriors, my warriors. No legacy matters more than this. You know your worth. You know your story. You know that being wanted is not about who stays, but about who fights. And we, my darling girls, we fight. All my love, Mom.